Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege tonight to introduce Senator Mark Warner, who recently generated headlines, good headlines I might add, for his support of LGBT causes and for standing up for marriage equality for gay and lesbian Americans. Senator Warner's support for the LGBT community is nothing new. Our senator has a long-standing history of being a supporter of LGBT equality. And we at Equality Virginia have always counted on the senator as a strong advocate and friend for our community. In 2011, he voted for the Employment Non-Discrimination Act and to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. In 2006, he spoke out and campaigned against the anti-marriage equality amendment to the Virginia Constitution. But it was when he was governor of Virginia that we knew he was a consistent and reliable advocate for equality and opportunity. Because in 2005, Senator Warner became the first governor of Virginia to ban employment discrimination based upon sexual orientation within state government. And that is why tonight we recognize and thank him for issuing that executive order and for paving the way for workplace protections to have a fighting chance in our General Assembly. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming a friend of Equality Virginia, a consistent advocate for the LGBT community, my former boss, my friend, our former governor, and our current United States Senator, Mark Warner.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. This is a lot better than Washington. It is a real honor for me to be back at another Equality Virginia dinner, to be with so many of my friends in the LGBT community, and to tell you, you've got a great night in front of you. People that are going to be recognized, and your keynote speaker tonight is a friend of mine for more than a decade, Cory Booker, who, my hope, will soon join me in the United States Senate in moving together on progressive issues. But I was thinking, as we went through the list of all the elected officials who are here tonight. 10 years ago, when there was the first Equality Virginia dinner, it was just an act of political courage for any elected official to show up. And while not everything on this path has been a straight path, we do see progress continuing. All right, Warner's going to get tweeted on already, I can see. Sometimes one step forward, one step back, but you got all moving in the right direction. And I am proud of the work we've done together. You know, it was literally 10 years ago when I first became governor, long before the non-discrimination statute, that Virginia actually had rules in our housing authority, the so-called family rule. Do you all remember that? One of the first actions, I don't know if he is here tonight, but when I was very proud to appoint Jay Fissette to the Housing Board, and we got the family rule turned around so that loving families, regardless of who they are, could live in state-supported housing. Something that, again, 10 years ago was viewed as somewhat radical in a state like Virginia. It also, I was proud of the fact, as was mentioned, literally only 8 years ago, was the fact that we've had the first non-discrimination statute, non-discrimination order, because we couldn't get it in a statute, but non-discrimination order that said you cannot discriminate in the workplace based upon your sexual identity. That was only 8 years ago. I remember as well the fact that we stood together when we unsuccessfully but waged the campaign against the so-called Marshall Amendment. that I think history will again show was out of step with the kind of Virginia that we all want our families to grow up in. But we've seen, while steps forward and backwards, we now see the march of history accelerate at a pace that is remarkable. And it's due to the work of so many in this room and countless thousands and thousands and millions of other Virginians who carry the cause. So, yes, I am proud of the fact that I voted for ENDA. I am proud of the fact that I voted for getting rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I am proud of the fact that I joined with hundreds of our other congressional colleagues on amicus briefs at the Supreme Court. Now, I had actually had this plan to make news tonight. A few weeks back, when I knew it was time to come out for marriage equality, but somehow things get ahead of you a little bit. But I was proud to lend my voice on that important issue as well. And, like any good politician, I'm going to claim at least a little credit that might have started getting the ball rolling with some of my other colleagues. And now, sitting here today, a week after the hearing in the Supreme Court, the majority of the United States Senate supports marriage equality. Fifty-three senators, the majority of the American people. Now we just have to hope for the majority of the Supreme Court. But quite honestly, regardless of what happens with the Supreme Court, we know that this is the path of the future. And I have to say and acknowledge that we all come to this decision, or at least I did, in a way that through family, through friends who are gay, but it was actually, in many ways, my three daughters who were like, "Dad, what is the issue?" You know, and they were, when I put out my statement, they were the very first 3 tweets I got, ahead of anyone else. One of them was kind of about time, but to my mind, it reflects the fact that any committed couple that love each other ought to have the protection under the law, and no one ought to have that relationship viewed as second class. But as was mentioned earlier, you know, sometimes Virginia is not always known for its steps forward. We've seen actions in the General Assembly over the last couple of years that on times have not made Virginia the kind of leading light, but instead the brunt of Jon Stewart jokes. Now, you all have a chance to change that, because in Virginia, particularly those of you who may be new to the Commonwealth, there is no rest for the weary. We have elections all the time. And this year, you have a choice of who's going to represent you in the General Assembly. You've got a choice of who's going to represent you as your next Attorney General. You've got a choice of who's going to represent you as your next Lieutenant Governor. And in a job that is the most important of all, a job that I loved with all my heart, you've got a choice of who's going to represent you as your next governor. And on issues of equality, and on issues of fairness, and on issues that are important to the LGBT community, there is a stark difference between the two candidates for governor in Virginia this year. And he didn't get acknowledged yet, but I want to make sure that he's not elected yet, but let me acknowledge someone who is, as of about a week ago, the Democratic nominee for governor of Virginia, my good friend Terry McAuliffe. Close with this. 10 years ago, this dinner barely had 200 people, and as I said, nary elected official in sight. Now it is sold out. It is representative of the changing face of Virginia. It is representative of elected officials at every level, from federal to state to local. It has been a remarkable march of progress and of fairness in Virginia. The fight is not done. We've got to make sure the Supreme Court decision turns out the right way, but again, regardless, the path of history is ahead of us. You've got to make sure that you continue that fight in elections and in issues that we care about together. Thank you so much.